Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. I always want to call you Dr. Rubin because that's just my habit, but I know the proper titling is Dr. Abati. Do you have a preference? You don't mind? Either or? You don't mind if I call you Dr. Rubin?
Yes.
Or do you mind?
Yes.
You mind?
I don't mind.
You don't mind? Okay. I knew I was your favorite.
My PhD is in.
That's it, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Because I always call you. Since 1990. Do you know I was born in 1990? Goodness gracious.
You were born the year I got a PhD.
I mean, I knew it.
Doctor, it's enough.
It's written in the stars. Goodness gracious. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai.
So it was Professor Killer that was saying
La vie est belle.
Yes.
Grammatical
title and last name.
But I don't know why
Dr. Rubin.
You both address me as Dr. Rubin.
I've always say Dr. Rubin. I do. I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, I feel like a proper ancestor.
Yeah. No, not even. No, I had a really great weekend, as you said, Ayo. It would have been greater had Arsenal taken all 3 points away from Old Trafford. Mathematically, it's not impossible for us to win the league. Mathematically, it is not impossible. Cannot. What do they say? Cannot challenge a willing mind or something. You can't question. Please, I'm just saying. Mathematically speaking, it's not over yet.
This is why your hearts get broken.
Hey, alrighty. Let me tell you what is happening around the world now. Former Bank of England and Canada's central bank governor Mark Carney will succeed Justin Trudeau as Canadian Prime Minister and will lead the Liberals into the next general election, which must be held by the 20th of October. Now, in his acceptance speech, the Prime Minister designate says his nation faces dark days brought on by a country we can no longer trust. Now, in a message to US President Donald Trump, Carney pledges to keep retaliatory tariffs on US goods until Americans show them some respect. Now, Trudeau announced his resignation back in January. Actually, it was on your birthday, I think we talked about this, Ayo. After a 9-year stint as leader. Now, he had been facing growing pressure from within his own party to resign, with his personal unpopularity with Canadians dragging the Liberals' fortunes for months in the polls. Now, coming home to the African continent, and several people have been arrested as police in Kenya fired tear gas to disperse protesters who tried to occupy a church after President William Ruto made a 20 million shilling donation. Now, the gift is the equivalent of about $155,000, and he made that donation to the Jesus Winner Ministry in Nairobi, a suburb in Nairobi, and that drew a lot of criticism from some Kenyan youth struggling with the high cost of living. Now, Ruto has defended his donation and has offered a similar gift to another church in an area called Eldoret. Now, last year, both Kenya's Catholic and Anglican leaders rejected donations, arguing that there was a need to protect the church from being used for political purposes. That being said, Ruto, who is an evangelical Christian, defended the donation, saying that it was an attempt to address the country's moral decay. He also said that those opposed to his donations were agents of the devil. A reminder that Kenyans have been angered by a series of tax rises introduced since Ruto was elected in 2022. Last year, a wave of nationwide protests forced Ruto to withdraw his finance bill, which contained a series of tax rises. So you heard what the Kenyan president said, agents of the devil, if you go against his donation.
The real moral decadence I see is the president of a country where an average Kenyan gets about 8 to 15,000 shillings as minimum wage, donating over $155,000. That's 20 million shillings in a country where people cannot feed. That's the real moral decadence I see there. Because what are these people turning politics into? They've dragged the house of God. They even do worse in Nigeria. They've dragged the house of God into their political shenanigans. It's only during campaign season they go to churches and mosques. So look at him making donations, heavy donations in churches. Anyway, he's been able to settle his political problem. Now, he's done the NADCO alliance that has brought Baba Raila Odinga in as prime minister. All right? So there's going to be a coalition. As he tried the first route that didn't work to send him to Africa with African unions, that didn't work. Now he's brought him in as prime minister. Let's see how this pans out. I mean, we all see how all of this shenanigans pans out. But Ruto should go and fix the life of an average Kenyan. He is the one that is immoral here. I just quickly want to talk about Makani. I'm happy. It's a good day for Canada. You have a strong head in the room. Mark Carney is a proven, global banker. His great works in Canada, how he shielded Canada from the credit crisis of '08. That was what made him up for the job in England. And Bank of England governor, reduced interest rates, stimulate growth in the economy, balanced out the economy, helped the economy transit from Brexit blues, also helped the economy in the early days of COVID. That's what true leadership is. And he says he's going to be fighting, that hegemon called Trump. And he's also saying, Abba, down with Polyev. You cannot have a Polyev that will suck up to Trump. And guess what? The polls are doing so well for the Liberals now. Canadians have come together. There's a rallying. They've done very well in the polls. Formerly, Polyev was going to rout them. But now the case has changed. So probably, if he settles down, he calls for election a couple of days because he has the momentum going on, because he also wants to get elected. He's want to be one of the prime ministers in a while that doesn't have a federal seat. So he gets a federal seat, can ride on his money. If he gets in, then common sense can prevail in the scheme of things in the world. So good day for Canada. 85% thumping majority in this party.
It's a good day for Canada, but is Canada ready to embrace it? Recall that if you look at the UK example, when Rishi Sunak came in and the alternative was a Keir Starmer, with regards to who could better manage the economy, a number of people would have opined that Rishi Sunak, if he had been given the time, would have probably handled the economy better. But the British people were tired of the Conservatives and wanted an alternative. So irrespective of who was sitting there as leader of the party, they were willing to vote them out. And that's why I come back to Canada. Yes, the polls seem to be more in favor to the Liberals following this, the recent elections. And if you look at Mark Carney himself, he has an excellent track record and looks like the man for the job, absolutely. But I'm hoping that the people would be able to put away their bias and dissatisfaction with the Liberal Party in recent times and be able to face squarely that this is the man that might just be able to lead Canada out of the economic impasse they're in. Let's take a little look at his background. This is, he schooled in 2 Ivy League schools, one of the best institutions in the world, Harvard University for his BA in economics, master's and PhD from Oxford University, where he played ice hockey, hence his reference to hockey during his speech where he said that in the same way that America couldn't win Canada in hockey, they wouldn't win as well in the trade war. It's because of his background. He played hockey in university, both at Harvard and at Oxford as well. But beyond that, of course, would also be his track record. It's not just the educational qualifications, but what he was able to do with economic turnaround, which is where Canada is currently. 2 things he said with regards to his policies. He's going to be investing in pipelines, looking at diversifying Canada away from this trade relationship with the United States of America, which has put them in this precarious situation whereby the tariffs would hurt them so bad that they are actually concerned about a recession if it follows through. So that's one. The other thing is also securing the border, which would be music to Trump's ears, which is part of what he's calling for. So he has a few things up his sleeves. He's talking about an economic recovery for Canada. It's interesting because this is his first foray into an elected position. He was Central Bank of Canada, Governor of Central Bank of Canada, and also the first non-Brit, because of the success he achieved with Canada, to also head the Central Bank in England, where he did well. He was Brexit. That's debatable as well. Pro-Brexit people said he was too pessimistic. He wasn't, realistic
but
enough.
He ended up being correct.
Yeah, he was. But he was, again, sentiments. That's what I'm saying. That it's correct. Very important, and I'm really glad. I hope that Canada will embrace this opportunity.
On Canada, in January, you will recall that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, decided to announce that he will resign as leader of the Liberal Party. Now, what were the issues? He had lost a lot of popularity. His party had lost popularity. It was trailing behind the Conservatives by about 20% in the polls. Now, the loss of popularity was linked to the housing crisis and the cost of living crisis. And this is why, the Liberals have now decided to find a new leader. And yesterday evening, it turned out that Mark Carney emerged with over 85% of the votes, first ballot, over 152,000 persons taking part in the ballot, and he was able to beat, hands down, Christina, I think, Freeland, who was a former finance minister in Trudeau's government. So now, what is next? He will be prime minister when Trudeau steps down. elections will have to be held before October 30. If they drag their feet, the opposition would pass a vote of no confidence in the Liberal Party, and then they will go to election. What is the election going to be like? The main opposition is Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party, holding 120 seats in the House of Commons, followed by Le Bloc Québécois, the Bloc Québécois that has 33 seats, and then the New Democrats who have 24 seats. So Canada is going to have a new leader anyway. Whatever happens, there'll probably be a coalition. But this new man that has emerged, Carney, yes, his major credential is that he's been central bank governor of 2 G7 countries. Yes. Canada, his own country, and also the United Kingdom, the first non-British to be governor of that central bank in England in 300 years. Now he's back, he has an opportunity to lead his country. He has never won an elected office. This is his first opportunity. He's a centrist. Trudeau was to the left. So you are likely to see, a difference in terms of style. And that's why he's been talking about investments, about, moving away from the US. But more importantly, is the Trump factor. It's Donald Trump that has further given an advantage to the Liberal Party. Otherwise, the Liberal Party was almost completely lost. Let me go quickly to Kenya. Now, President William Ruto came to power 2 years ago on this evangelical favor, Christian vote. He used to wear white garments. He used to go to church services and he would be weeping. And his supporters called him David, the shepherd, who was coming to save Kenya. Now, somewhere down the line, his opponents then used to call him Second Jesus. Now they are even calling him Sakayo. Sakayo is the Swahili word for Zacchaeus, the notorious tax collector in the Bible. So from being President David to be, he has now become President Sakayo. He says he's doing what he's doing, donating money either in Eldoret or in Nairobi to save the country from moral decay. Yes. But the young people are saying, no, the issue is not about moral decay. It's about the fact that you are not keeping your promises and that you are taxing us. You are introducing a finance bill with the fought to a standstill in 2024. You are going from church to church, donating as much as $150,000. But the biggest blow that President Ruto has received is the attack from the Kenya Catholic Bishops' Conference, which has a large population of followers in Kenya. And they have said that this is a president who is committed to a tissue of lies. Yes. So this is a challenge that President Ruto faces. He's been reminded that he's no longer David. It's not longer the promised Messiah. And he's no longer he's now a tax collector.
There we go.
And I cannot bribe God. He cannot bribe God.
That is true.
So this is what we see in Kenya, the limits to the politics of deception, of which other African leaders are just as guilty.
Thank you very much, Dr. Reuben. Thank you all for your submissions to the World Brief. Let's move on to the newspapers now. As ever, we begin with the front page of This Day. And This Day leads with the politics of Rivers State. The frosty relations could be thawing, as Blessing Ibunge reports. Now, Governor Simba Fubara has invited all 27 members of the State House of Assembly for a conversation. As The Punch also reports, this is against the backdrop, of course, of the Supreme Court last week stopping the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Accountant General of the Federation from releasing any funds from the Federation account to Rivers State until an appropriation law is made by the State's Assembly. The New Telegraph leads with the prospect of a violent uprising happening in Nigeria as Catholic bishops warn corrupt leaders. The president of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Archbishop Daniel Oko, says that many Nigerians are at their breaking points as a result of worsening hunger and suffering in the country. The Guardian leads with a shocking yet unsurprising discovery. Despite Nigeria's slight improvement in the 2024 Corruption Perceptions Index, the paper worries that there's a long road to redemption out of Nigeria's plagues of corruption and misgovernance. That's as the EFCC recovered 1 trillion naira in stolen cash and assets from politicians and other individuals. Now, just to put this money into perspective, the money alone covers the 2024 budget of Yobe, Gombe, Ebonyi, Nasarawa and Ekiti states combined. The Daily Trust says President Tinubu's re-election campaign has kicked off in northern Nigeria. His son Sheyi has stepped up his Ramadan visits across the region too. Meanwhile, former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, visited ex-minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola and Pastor Tunde Bakare here in Lagos over the weekend, an indication that he could be setting the scene for his shot at Aso Rock. Finally, the Tribune leads with former Senate President Bukola Saraki cautioning the sitting Senate President, advising Godswill Akpabio not to politicize due process in the Senate. Serap has called for the Senate President to rescind Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan's suspension also. And staying with the challenges women face, let's move on to the United Kingdom's Metro newspaper, and we see the plague of upskirting on public transport is continuing. More than 2,000 voyeurism offences have been reported by women who saw someone taking a photograph or video under their clothing without their permission. Those are your papers this morning.
Right. Okay, real quickly, I think one of the biggest stories in the land this morning is pretty much that of the Rivers debacle. I just wanted to add one more thing. Except we build a country where the people's fate are not hinged on godfathers, we will never enjoy the true dividends of democracy. Because godfathers will be worse than the military dictators we're running away from the 90s. And what they do is they will pull the states and they'll pull its resource for their own selfish benefit. Except we start to condemn godfathers and fight them vigorously, we are never going to have a clear path. Evil must not be allowed to win in this country.
Thank you, Rufai.
Absolutely, evil must not be allowed to reign. Now, the local government, local government chairmen appeared in videos mocking and laughing and singing "Day your day, make we day our day," in response to the governor's efforts to rally round and bring them together in pursuit of peace. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're going to be biting anytime soon, even though he's even made the package quite attractive. He said that he's going to build a befitting space for them to meet. We need to even visit that space and how that demolition happened, and if we can continue like this as a nation. And then also talked about paying arrears of salaries and emoluments. So let's see if they're going to take this peace offering or they're going to throw it back in his face and demand for maybe something different.
Okay, just a brief comment on a story I saw this morning in the Cable newspaper. The Cable is reporting that the NNPC is saying that it has forward sold its crude, allocations, and that, refineries, local refineries will no longer be able to get the crude allocations, crude for Naira, or is it Naira for crude, that the Federal Executive Council decided upon in October. I think that, the implications are frightening. What it means is that the cost of fuel, pump price of fuel, is likely to go up. And all this excitement about Dangote refinery reducing price may not happen again. Right. Two, that Naira, payment was also introduced by the Federal Executive Council in order to manage foreign exchange fluctuations. We're likely to lose that. The bigger concern is about policy flip-flop. The Nigerian government cannot come and say, this is the policy that we're introducing, and then 2-3 months later, we're told that, that policy cannot work again. How did they arrive at that policy in the first place? This is a question about the policy formulation process. And we have read in the papers that meetings have been held between Dangote Refinery and the NNPC and other stakeholders, local refiners. Now, what exactly has happened? I think both the NNPC and the federal government of Nigeria has an obligation to respond to that story in the Cable newspaper. It's there. The story is there. I would like to hear what the NNPC is saying, because The bottom line is about the interest of we struggling people of Nigeria who have to buy fuel to be able to move from one place to the other.
Agreed.
Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
Presenting the world brief and also
And Dangote, the refiner, the petrol station affiliates Dangote has actually reduced fuel price. If you go to MRS, it's cheaper. It's about the 800 mark.
Yeah, but
I'm saying the story this month.
Yeah.
That story is dated March 10.
Okay.
Quoting sources within the system.